Welcome to Raising Consciousness with me, Lou Burrows, where raising human consciousness happens. On this show, I'm joined by guests to cover a range of topics and have conversations that will raise human consciousness for current and future generations. Now, let's dive into today's show. Hi everyone, welcome back to Raising Consciousness today. We are joined by Chandni. Hopefully I pronounced her name correctly because I'm really bad with names, but I'm really happy to welcome her to the podcast today. We've connected a little while back and, had a couple of conversations over LinkedIn, Instagram, and we jumped on a really awesome call one Friday, I believe it was, which I fully enjoyed. So thank you so much for joining me today.
You're so welcome. I'm happy to be here. Excited.
Yeah, me too. I've been looking forward to this to this episode. I think we should start by, if you kind of, in your own words, say what you do, who you are ultimately in a nutshell, and then we'll dive into the meat of the episode.
Sounds good. So I'm Chandni and I am from India. I have, as far back as I can remember, I've always had this sense of just really being connected to something much larger than us. Call it the universe, call it life, call it whatever you wish to call it. But there was always a sense of connection. And there was always a sense of feeling like I was here, like my purpose of being here was to help people deeply reconnect with that depth of who they are and remember what it feels like to live knowing that connection. And I wondered as a little girl, kind of looking out the window, as we would drive by, that something in the world seems a bit off. It doesn't feel right. Like, how can we be living within such a miracle and still be living in such a disconnected way? So there's always a sense of that was, kind of my path. And I tried to look for it, and that took me down many different experiments in my career so far. So I studied computer applications, but I was very aligned with being in service. So I made my career so far in the space of social impact, working in social enterprises in Dubai and in India. And I started a social initiative with a friend about 9 years ago, which was focused on inspiring compassion and human connection. And that was really beautiful. So that's kind of been the path. But in about a year ago, through many serendipitous events that happened in my life, I went on to start a business called Moonlight Accelerators. And the intention of this business is to really support young, aspiring game changers deeply connect to the depth of who they truly are, deeply connect to what it is that they feel they're here to do, and get into action around that. So that's what my focus is on right now. Having said that, I'm currently in Costa Rica through, again, another lineup of synchronous events. And here I'm exploring with a few collaborators how we can run businesses and organizations from this place of deep, deep, deep connection to life. So that's also a current focus in my space right now.
Amazing. So I know there's a few kind of different topics and ways how we can take the conversation today. I am curious though, it sounds like throughout your journey from a young age, you've had this curiosity with connection and this deeper sense of actually what life is all about, really. Like, where do you think that comes from? Is that something that's ingrained within your family, or I'm just kind of curious where that stems from.
Great question. So I feel when I look back that there was a sense that was kind of natural within me that didn't necessarily come from family. It was just an inner feeling, an inner curiosity. Having said that, though, I lost my mum when I was 11, and that accelerated the questioning because I started, thinking about what's the purpose of life and why are we here and what happens when we die, things like that. And, when you ask the questions, the answers begin to come. But that event definitely got me to start asking questions.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things we wanted to touch upon was that around source ultimately, and and kind of how we like listen to this. in different, I don't know if cultures is the right word, but we all kind of call it something different, right?
Right.
What does in this instance, what does connected to source mean to you?
Mhm.
And how do you kind of explain it to I don't know, like friends or family who maybe aren't as conscious and aware and kind of curious and invested in the type of work that you are, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it makes complete sense, and I'll do my best. And I think the
Of
journey
course.
with understanding this is just in the last few days, I've been exposed to a whole new practice of
Mm,
qigong and direct inquiry, and I'm questioning so much of, what I have kind of stabilized within me as my knowing. So there's always an expansion, but trying to keep it simple. I think people might say source, people might say God, people might say universe. To me, it's simply this energy that creates everything, this energy that is in everything, the energy within all the atoms in this universe, the energy of life, if you will. And how I explain like being connected to source is just a remembrance that, I am at the fundamental level. I am this energy. I'm just a kind of unique expression of this energy. And so being connected to source is being connected to that fundamental, within me. And I think the deeper you go with that practice of connection, you can almost feel, or at least I can almost feel this energy of the universe, source, God, accessible to me, the energy in all things, if you will, the energy of creation. And yeah, I think that is what that's the way I define it currently.
mm.
And being connected is, I think, this ability. What's helped me being connected is like deepening in different practices to reach this point of stillness and quiet where I can feel this energy all around me. And I feel that once it's there, it's very easy to receive guidance because I feel held support and I ask questions and I get inspiration. And all of us can do this. It's just about deepening in this practice of connecting. I hope that helped answer your question.
No, no, it did. Yeah, as you mentioned, so some people might call it God or the universe, and so I was kind of
Yeah.
curious to learn what it kind of means to you. And yeah, so yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. So, like for our listeners, if we have somebody on the other end, why does this matter? Like if somebody's just going around like their daily activity of waking up, going to work, and they're coming across this episode, like, okay, so source or the universe or God or even a lot of work that I'm doing now, like stepping into consciousness work and raising our individual levels of consciousness and the collective consciousness. Why do you think it matters, if that makes sense? Because we're obviously people who are invested in this work and curious about it and can see how it can add to see how stepping into it we become more of our true selves, right? More of our authentic selves and our authentic being. But somebody who I don't know who just came across the episode and they're like, what is this? Like I want to try, like through the show, I want to try and bring more awareness to these sorts of topics. So I don't like to use the word average, but but hopefully you kind of get what I mean in terms of the normal, again, I'm just trying to find the right word, person
Yeah.
who comes across the episode can actually stop and be like, oh, maybe this is, what is this? Maybe this is something that can add to my life, add to the quality of my life and help me to create a more meaningful and purposeful life, if that makes sense.
Completely. And yeah, I think I would just, in terms of, you looking at how to define a person in that category, I'd just say someone who hasn't started exploring yet. We're all
Yeah,
otherwise the same.
of course.
But I think what's coming up for me is at the individual level. Like I'm going to answer the what's in it for me as an individual beyond going into the collective good. I think I just picked up a book out of a shelf today called Flow and just read the first 7 pages, and it was touching on, what that all of us have been seeking happiness. That's the pursuit of happiness seems to be at the center of the human experience, and how that's really tied to your inner experience, to what's happening within you, regardless of what's going on in your life. You could have the best life from an exterior spectator point of view in terms of everything you want materially, everything you want in terms of relationships. But you may not be happy. And at the same time, you could not have anything, but a person could be deeply happy. And it's all about that inner experience. What are you feeling on the inside? How peaceful are you? How calm are you? How centered are you? And that you can really create a sense of stillness within by tapping into these deeper layers of consciousness. Because a lot of the agitation that we feel inside comes from fear and anxiety and things like that. But when you reach this point where at a deeper level, you fully, like not just intellectually, but fully on the inside, remember and understand that you are simply one with life and that there's nothing else to it. You're safe, you're protected, just like the trees are taken care of. You are too. It was life that had breathed like that, created you from a single cell into the amazing person that you are. So why do you doubt that intelligence can't take care of you in your life? And so I think if you look at it from what's in it for an individual, if you're looking for a happy, joyful, fulfilling life, and you go back a step, you know that it's about really creating that happy, joyful, fulfilling life within you first and on the inside. And one way to do that on the inside is to really deepen in your consciousness because it takes a lot of the unnecessary fear and anxiety out of the equation and really allows you to
Mm.
live in peace and stillness. Then, if you look at it, once you kind of, and when you get to that point where on the inside everything is calm, then your needs really change. You don't need anything to validate you as much. Not that you're perfect, but it then becomes okay, what is the point of this life? And the only thing that seems to make sense is to serve. And so then, if
Mm.
you look at it at a more collective point of view, the more you deepen in your consciousness and the more you bring this inner stillness within you, the more of us are going to just be stepping into service, because it's the only thing that makes sense when you just feel a lot of calm and love within you. And so, as a collective, there's the benefit in the sense we're all working towards a better world, a world that we know is possible, where everybody can really thrive. The pursuit of happiness is at the core of the human experience, and there's a lot to show now that the happiness that we seek is really a reflection comes from our inner state. Like no matter what's going on in our life and what our external circumstances look like, it is only when we can experience joy, peace, stillness within that we can truly be
Mm.
happy. And I was sharing that, deepening in consciousness, as in deepening in your sense of connection to all of life, is really a beautiful way to move into those inner states of calm and of peace and bliss, because it really takes a lot of the anxiety, a lot of the fear away. When you truly remember and connect, not intellectually but deeply, deeply in all levels of who you are, connect with that remembrance that you are one with life. It was life, whatever you want to call it, that the intelligence of life that shaped you from a single cell into the human being that you are right now. It's that beautiful intelligence of life that moves the planet and brings up the sun and takes care of the trees. So when we remember that, why do we think it doesn't continue to support and guide us even now? And when we really lean into that, what comes up is a lot of stillness, a lot of quiet, a lot of peace. And that really shifts us into, living a life that's joyful, meaningful, purposeful. And what I shared then is that when we are able to feel that way and to experience life in that way, then the only thing that makes sense in terms of action in the world is to be in service because our needs
Mm.
get met. There is this quietness, there is this sense of fullness within, and we're not trying to feed any emptiness within us. And so the only thing that really makes sense is this as a next step to express that is to be in service in some way. So that was from an individual perspective, but from a more collective perspective, deepening in consciousness then allows more of us to step into this role of truly being in service to proactively create the world we want to live in, a world that is
Mm.
more fair, more just, more loving, more kind, where more of us can really flourish. And so I think that's why it matters.
Yeah, I love that. In terms of the, well, in terms of how our inner state, our inner world gets reflected externally, what are some of those kind of building blocks internally that we can kind of pinpoint for people to maybe to start to explore, whether that's belief systems or their own kind of what their own unique skills and talents are for you? What when we say our inner world, like what is that?
Okay. I think what comes up immediately is first just a deeper sense of awareness of what is going on within. So, in a given
Mm.
moment, what do you can look at it like this. This is what I do as a practice. I check in to see what's going on in my mind, like what's running
Yep.
around, just kind of put my awareness on what am I thinking, what's going on in my mind. I check in with my body to see what's happening within my body,
Hmm.
what's going on, because
Yep.
our emotions are really reflected in our body. If I'm feeling fear, you'll feel a constriction in your chest. If I'm feeling anxiety, you're likely to feel something in your stomach. If you're feeling hurt, you might feel something around your heart. So your body, paying attention to your body, really reflects what's going on in your emotional state. And I check in to see what's going on with my heart. How's my heart feeling? And there's a separate, I mean, the more we pay attention to it, there's a sense of that your heart has its own intelligence, its own thing going on.
Mm.
So I think the first step in to me from in terms of your question is a deeper sense of awareness of what's going on first, and to really bring our attention to it, because as we take action in the world, we are trying to stabilize. It's a need, right? Either of the body, the mind, or the heart that we're trying to cater to. So once we begin to see these needs for what they truly are, then we reach a moment of freedom because we know where the action is coming from and we can make a conscious choice. So I think self awareness is the first step in terms of, mastering your inner state.
Yeah, I like that. So yesterday, so at the time of this recording, we're kind of recording this on the 23rd of Feb. But so yesterday, I did an understanding consciousness event, and actually the first level I spoke about was that individual consciousness, right? And spoke
Mm.
about some of the points you mentioned there about what's in terms of our internal world, like our thoughts, and it's interesting to hear that you also actually our body as well, and like how that feels, and I think also the connection between the two
Yeah.
it is very important. And I like the point you mentioned about the heart as well. There's a meditation that sometimes I listen to on this app, and I'm gonna mess up what. So it's a guided one. I'm gonna mess it up. I know I am, but it kind of said something like it's part of it is about listening to your heart, and it's there's something around it around how the heart is one of the first organs I think to form when you're kind of in the womb, and basically it was like, yeah, it just reminded me of that and how it's like got it's a very powerful thing ultimately. And if we lead with more heart, follow our heart more, then yeah, I do believe that we can create more meaningful, purposeful lives. So I might link that below today's episode if people are interested in that. So in terms of that, it's a little bit of a segue, but in terms of following our heart more or leading with more love, more heart, like well, what does that mean to you, and how can people practically do that, do you feel?
Okay, so I think, well, okay, so what I've found through my experiences and what is often talked about if you read a book around this thing or you listen to podcasts is that there's a concept that your heart is kind of a channel for guidance from all of life or
Mm.
from the universe. That concept is very, it's all over the place in the space of
Hmm.
consciousness.
Yes,
But I think it's with all of these things, you know it by experience best. And
of course.
I've begun to, really feel that, like when I really tune in to my heart, what I'm receiving is guidance from a part of a larger intelligence, if you will, almost
Mm.
like almost guidance from a larger intelligence, but perfectly tuned to be what Chandni needs to hear right now.
Right.
So,
Okay.
and I found that the more I live my life listening to, what my heart is saying, the more everything comes together perfectly.
Hmm.
And so it's, follow your heart. It can be a cliche, right?
Of
It's not
course.
about just doing whatever you feel like doing, like follow your heart. So I'm going to just do anything that I want and not, have a care in the world. That's not the kind of follow your heart that I'm talking about. I'm
Okay.
talking about tune in to that deeper intelligence and follow those nudges because
Hmm.
I think they take you where you need to go in the best way.
Do you feel
But
that's the same as intuition or something different?
that's a good question. Again, with these words, I don't know. Like, what do you mean when you say intuition? Like a feeling around
Hmm.
something, right?
Yeah, I guess like I think
Yeah.
from again, like we're all kind of coming at this from our own lenses, right? Kind of
Yeah.
on top of our own experiences and exposures and learnings that we've kind of had, and I guess all have slightly different filters over.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for intuition for me is kind of like that sense, like that deeper knowing, I guess. And I'm just
Hmm.
wondering if that is a gut thing or if that's a more or if that's actually more now of a heart thing, if
Hmm.
intuition, but again, going back to what I just said, does that depend on how we look at it
Hmm.
individually as well? So it's fascinating, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally get your question. I don't know if I have a clear kind of response to that, but I think from what I understand, there's instinct in a sense. There is
Hmm.
intelligence that your body, maybe your gut, and it's embodied within you from your life experiences. Like, for instance, you can sense if a situation is dangerous, maybe, or you
Yeah.
can sense if there's something to be concerned about. You can sense things. That's intelligence kind of within your body from your life experiences so far, right? And that might not necessarily require you to tap into a deeper intelligence from your heart. It's already, that intelligence is available to you as instinct. So that's something. And then there's in yeah, I think intuition, a deeper knowing, your heart, I would say they're kind of similar.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
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 So I'm kind of just like, even myself, like making connections between that because, yeah, like maybe that instinct is more of that primal state of like keeping
Yeah.
us safe and keeping us kind of, like if I was to, I don't know, go for a walk and see a lion, like instincts would
Yeah.
tell me run, like,
Yeah.
so that's,
Yeah.
that's instinct where,
Yeah.
intuition is maybe as we're like starting to realize, or I'm starting to realize is more of that deeper knowing that is more linked to the heart, which is interesting.
Yes. And I think
Ex-
another thing is, it's so much of the way we behave, the way we show up in the world comes from you talked about beliefs, right? Comes from
mm,
our thought patterns, our beliefs, our subconscious mind. And it controls so much of who we are. It's incredible. But what I'm beginning to sense is that when you're tuning into your heart's intelligence, there's a sort of freshness to the insights
mm,
that come up for you, where it feels to me that what comes through your heart's intelligence is not bound by your patterns and your beliefs. So I feel like those, I hope I'm being clear, but I feel like there's a freshness there that's not bound from everything that you've been in your past so far.
mm.
And if you actually begin to just tune into the subtle feeling, you can almost feel something within your heart space, and there is always this feeling of fresh energy and not old, energy that's kind of showing up again.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, with all this in mind, I'm kind of wondering how. I mean, you're obviously doing a great job, and hopefully, the work that I'm starting to do more with the podcast and that is getting this message out there. And obviously, there's many conscious leaders out there who are doing amazing work. I think something that comes to me when I have these conversations is Yeah, so it is around it's around the how we can get this out to impact more people. So I'm somebody who focuses on kind of impact and just the message, because for me it's just like mind blowing and tapping into it more in my own life, like and seeing the
Yeah.
transformation there. It's just that eagerness, to like share it with more
Yeah.
people. Yet, you might have also experienced this that not everyone is open,
Yeah.
and so I'm wondering, for you, first of all, how do you kind of navigate those situations? Because I feel that has to be the building block. Somebody has to be open and willing to go to
Yeah.
start to think in a different way and be curious and open. Because once you're willing and open, like the universe is open to you, right? Like,
Right.
yeah. So I'm curious on your thoughts, if that makes sense, on like how navigating those situations.
Definitely. So, in fact, it's something that I've been questioning over the last couple of days. So it's very like alive in my mind. So far, my approach has been to work with people who are open and eager and
Mm,
seeking this, because there's a lot of people who are seeking, and that's a great first step, because the more of us that step deeper into this, the more we're holding space for others to step deeper into this. I'm sure that
hmm
you, just by going on your journey, have had such an amazing, inspiring impact on your friends and your family, and if nothing, you've at least induced curiosity. So
mm,
just you stepping in kind of has a ripple effect. So that's definitely a way to go about it, to just focus on who's ready and take it from there. But it's interesting here because the people that I'm collaborating with here are actually working on frameworks to meet everybody where they're at. So, how
wow.
can you
Okay.
make like awakening and consciousness available to anybody basis where they're at and what is their natural affinity, what is their natural
Mm,
kind of, how do they navigate the world, and how can you create an experience that meets them in the way that's comfortable for them, but slowly awakens these deeper levels within them. And I found that to be very interesting, because now we're talking about a very inclusive system that anybody can tap into, that is designed to awaken consciousness. So, more on that maybe in a few months, but
of
it's
course.
definitely bringing questions.
Yeah, yeah. I would love to hear more about that. And I think one of the things for me is because these sorts of conversations don't get taught or shared in the traditional kind of structure, right? In the traditional kind of if it's school or whatever it is. And so obviously we just grow up with what we know. And I think in that current system, it requires us to be curious outside of that. And as I mentioned before, open and willing to go, okay, when new concepts come along, to listen ultimately and to also have these conversations. I think having conversations, education are some really powerful ways to to bring it to more people. Because sometimes I don't like talking like that, like bring it to more people, because actually what we're actually talking about is life itself in my mind,
Yeah.
So it's like, so it's kind of weird how that works. But in the like in the few minutes that we have left, I would love to kind of get some final thoughts from you, some final words of inspiration, if you have any, on encouraging people to maybe start their consciousness journey, or tips to help them along their consciousness journey, whatever words of wisdom you have to wrap up today's episode.
Sure. So I think what comes through is just to know that everyone is supported, you are guided. Ask and receive. Ask for the questions that you have, and you will receive the answers. If you are truly seeking to go deeper in, your experience of being more connected to, Luke, as you said, life, which we all are, it's just remembering and becoming aware of that connection. Then, and if that is what you're seeking right now, that you're like, I'm ready, I want to go deep, I want to understand. What I've seen in my experience and the experience of many people that I work with is that the opportunities to go deeper come to you the
Hmm.
minute you make that decision. boom, 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 things start to happen. Someone will recommend a book, an Instagram, you'll see a course on Instagram that strikes your interest, and
Mm,
then you don't have to control the journey as much. You just keep saying, you go with the flow, you take what resonates, you move forward. And I think so the first bit is to set that intention, like get clear on the
mm,
intention and watch and witness. I'm not saying sit around and do nothing about it, but as you start to explore, you will find that things come into your space. It's simply because you're now putting your attention on this area of your
oh yeah.
life.
Mm,
It's like when you want to buy a car and you're thinking of a red Audi, you'll suddenly start seeing all the red Audis in the city that you never noticed before, right? Simply because you've now placed your attention. So when you place your attention on, I want to deepen in my consciousness, you'll start seeing opportunities around you to actually take you on that. That's the first bit. Get clear on the intention. The second bit is say yes to life. That's
mm,
what I've seen. Like when opportunities come where you feel that the inner tingle, the knowing, that feeling of resonance, like this feels right for me, do it. Just say yes to life. That's been my single strategy in the last 1 year. And I think I don't know who I was 1 year ago. I'm a completely different person. My
yeah.
life has completely flipped on itself. It looks unrecognizable, and it's not come from knowing the way forward at all. If you asked me a year ago how I would get that, I'd be in Costa Rica working with people who are focused on awakening consciousness at a global level, I'd be like, how would that happen? And I never needed to know the how. I just needed
Mm.
to keep saying yes, 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 and then let life take you there. So those would be my two pieces of wisdom, I guess.
Amazing. Yeah, and I think I would just kind of stress that, and so on the yes part, we're saying yes to those things that resonate with us,
Yes.
because
Yes.
I see a lot of people saying yes, and it's like, are you saying yes to things that are in alignment with you, in alignment with like what matters to you ultimately, and with your path as well. I just wanted to kind of make that distinction of saying yes to the things that resonate, and and then allow life to flow, as
Yeah.
we spoke about. So amazing. Thank you so much for your time today. In the minute or so we have left, would love you to share where people can connect with you online. Website, is it website, social? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. So the website is up as moonlightaccelerators.com. That's where you can find information about the experiences we're running to help people deepen in consciousness. And I'm on Instagram. My personal handle is definitely a better place. So Chandni Sawlani on Instagram. So those would be
Amazing.
the two pieces. Yeah.
Awesome. So I will link that down below. And just once again,
Thank
thank you
you.
for your time today. It's been a pleasure having
Thank
you
you,
on.
Luke.
And yeah, guys, I will be back next week for another episode. I look forward to seeing and talking to you all then. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
And for more after today's show, be sure to head on over to raisingconsciousness.show to get all of the show notes, transcriptions, videos for each episode, and a hell of a lot more. And if you got value from this episode, found it insightful, or learned a thing or two, please leave a review where you can let everyone know that this show is worth checking out. I appreciate you so much. You'll be hearing from me in the next episode.